Hey everyone, and happy Thursday. It is the last Thursday of February, and you're here on the Ghost Biker Garage, and I'm your host, the Ghost Biker. So I hope everyone is doing well, been having a great week. Like I said, it's the last Thursday in February. Seems like February flew by. January took about 2 years to get through, and February's flown by. So here we are getting ready to enter March, and just a lot of really cool things going on. Hey to Janet, hello Anna, thank you. Hey Jason, thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. Got a great guest, but before we get to the guest, just going to talk a little bit about some things that has been going on over the last little bit. Had a lot of things going on at the historic Scott County Jail. And we're going to be wrapping up the February Crimes of Passion flashlight tours and public ghost hunts this weekend. Got a sold out public ghost hunt and 2 sold out flashlight tours coming up, but we do still have a few tickets available for a flashlight tour that's this Friday night. And so if you're interested in doing the flashlight tour with myself and Dr. Sumner at the historic Scott County Jail, listening to some great stories about some crimes of passion that took place surrounding the jail, then go over and check out the Facebook page for Historic Scott County Jail, as well as the website www.historicscottcojail.com. And you can get more information on that. We're trucking away on the Jailhouse Informant podcast. We've had 3 really cool episodes and got some really good episodes lined up for the next couple weeks. And that's on every Monday night at 8 p.m. So that's on the Historic Scott County Jail Facebook page and YouTube channel as well. So again, thank you guys for going over there, checking that out, and following along. Took a really cool trip this week to the Lost Sea here in Sweetwater, Tennessee, which, if you guys are familiar with that, it's just about 45 minutes north of Chattanooga. And it's actually the second largest underground lake that's in a cave. And it's very, very cool. It's just 25 feet smaller than the world's largest lake, world's largest underground lake. And so going to have some pictures on that coming. Heard some really cool history. Got to spend some time in the cave and riding on the underground lake in a boat. It was a lot of fun this week. So got some stuff coming on that pretty soon. But yeah, just a great week of some really cool things going on leading up to a busy weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and get to tonight's guest. He's, I did his show a few months ago, and I'm very honored to have him to come back on with us tonight. His name is Len Dorman, and he's the host of the Southern Fried Paranormal podcast. Len had his first paranormal experiences as a child in Florida and Georgia, and has been ghost hunting with equipment for 15 years. Len helped start several paranormal groups while living in the Chicago area, and after moving to Southeast Arkansas in December of 2015, Len began working as an independent paranormal investigator. Now, Len investigates when he can, but mainly hosts the Southern Fried Paranormal Show podcast on WLFE-DB radio network. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Len on. So if anyone has any questions or anything, we'll take these glasses off because they're creating a really weird glare on the screen. Hopefully in a week, my contacts will be in and I won't be needing those. But I'm going to go ahead, pull Len up. And so if anyone has any questions, please put them into the live stream chat room over here. And if you will, please do them in all caps, just so I can make sure that I can see them and distinguish, because, sometimes people, get into conversations and such. And so that helps me to not miss your comments. So anyways, help me welcome my friend, Mr. Len Dorman. Hey, Len.
Hello. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I am doing just fine. On my show just previously, I did a live Echo Vox session.
Oh, very cool.
I've had a few issues with 3 spirits who've been appearing in my house.
Oh, so is that new?
Recently, yes. We've had a walkthrough mail. This house was built in 1985, and it was added on to a few years later. We're only the second owners. The first owners, the person who built it, is still alive. he's divorced, but both him and his wife and his children are all still living. So there should not be any ghost here. But we have we call him the walk-through hunter. He never says anything, and he could be residual.
Okay.
He's not exhibiting any kind of contact. For your listeners to not know what a residual is, that's a spirit that walks through that's not intelligent. It's just a repeater, and it's just doing something it did while it was living from the energy. And it could be drawing an energy just attached to the house, because before this house was built, this was mainly hunting area.
Okay.
Now, around this area, I'm about a half mile from Cane Creek State Park with a rather large fishing lake. It's artificial. They put some dikes up and diked up the Cane Creek creek and backed it up. And also the longest bayou in the world, the Bayou Bartholomew, also runs into that lake. So it filled rather quickly once they kind of dug it out in the Depression. The Bayou Bartholomew runs in the river Arkansas River. It used to change its course sporadically. Man kind of got control of it, and it doesn't move now.
Okay.
But for thousands of years, it would move periodically. And it was in one place for a while and dug a pretty deep valley and then changed its course to where it is today. When it changed that course, of course, it left a big depression and created the Bartholomew Bayou.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's kind of grown up now. You wouldn't know by looking at it, but it used to be a very important steamboat route where steamers, smaller ones anyway, the captains described it as the most difficult journey in a steamboat that there is, because overhanging branches and getting caught on everything, because when there was, of course, a lot of water running through it, run a bunch of limbs and knock down trees. And so it was kind of a mess, but it was necessary because they needed a steamboat service where there was no Mississippi River and no Arkansas River.
Wow.
So yes,
wow.
there used to be steamboats coming within about a half mile of my house in the bayou. And we're wondering if the one lady appeared in period clothing, middle 19th century, had died on a steamboat, because a lot of people died on steamboats. They blew up. So I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
One lady was psychic, who was on my show, and said, you have a spirit there who was strangled. He did not know some of my past. I was supposed to work a case down in McGee, Arkansas, further south from here. And they want to know who the person was that strangled the woman that they have haunting their house. And the psychic knew nothing about that story out of McGee, because I don't really go into it, because it's an incomplete case. I never got in there to investigate. The woman living there is a Bible belter. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
She doesn't believe in ghosts and believes I talk to demons, and she wanted no part of it. Her husband was a fan of paranormal shows and wanted to see a real one, but he couldn't convince her. So I never went in there. But they told me the woman was strangled. So I do have that as a verification. And kudos to the psychic that came through, Chris Garcia, by picking, you know him, of course.
I do, yeah.
He picked up the fact that there was a woman hanging around the house that had been strangled nearby. And that's the only one I know of anywhere in this area that was actually strangled in their home. And it was kind of neat him picking up on that. And I had not mentioned anything about McGee, Arkansas. So I was quite impressed with Chris.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. I will have him on my show probably later in the summer. So if you know Chris Garcia, he's the real deal. He's proved it to me on several occasions.
Very kind individual as well.
Yes, he is. He recently had a death in the family last week. He lost a beloved dog.
Oh, I hate to hear that.
So he's rather depressed right now, but he's slowly getting over it. But that was a hard impact. Like I said, it was a beloved animal by both him and his mother, and that really hit home with him.
Sure. So, did you have any luck on your Echo Box session?
I had some interactive stuff. I had 2 or 3 spirits calling me by my middle name.
Oh, okay.
That you see, I use my first and last name when I'm on here. I rarely use my middle name. Nobody calls me by my middle name.
Hmm.
And it's funny, the spirits were kept calling me Paul. It was rather amusing. I was actually watching the movie Paul, which
Oh,
is
wow.
this morning. It's only there on TV. I was trying to snooze in front of the TV, so I watched it. And then a voice came over here that said tits. Excuse my French.
Hmm.
And if you remember the
Huh.
movie Paul, there was a cartoon version of a woman, and the first story that the author wrote was about a woman with 3 boobs.
Huh. So
Is
they seem to be aware.
these voices seem to be aware, and like I said, I found it very amusing. I was watching the movie today, and the fact that I share the middle name with the lead
Hmm.
character, Paul the alien.
Hmm.
Which, by the way, I'm a ghost guy. I don't deal with UFOs. I've never had any experience. I've never seen an unidentified flying object in the atmosphere.
Hmm.
And Paul is all I know about aliens.
Gotcha. So you're pretty much a paranormal spirit purist.
Yes, I've had no dealings with Bigfoot. I live here in the woods. I live, like I said, by Bayou Creek and a fishing lake. I'm nearly surrounded by water.
Hmm.
The property behind me got recently cleared by an up and coming neighbor. He bought about 20-25 acres behind me and exposed 2 creeks running behind me. So, yes, I have 2 small creeks
Okay.
behind me. I have a lake to one side of me. I have the Bartholomew Bayou on the other side of me. So I'm basically surrounded by water here.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about some of the different experiences you've had and how you got started in the paranormal.
Okay, that's a long story. I'll just try to keep it short for you. I don't want to bore everybody. My first paranormal experience, of course, was as a child, as most people who have any kind of gift of open mindedness can tell you. They're nervous about being in the dark alone because they see things, and I was one of those. I saw. I lived on a hill down in Columbus, Georgia, my hometown, which is also on the Chattahoochee River, and there was also a creek just down the hill from me. And most people don't know this, but it's estimated that before the white man or the Latinos, the Spanish, came here, that there was up to 100 million Native Americans in North, Central, and South America. Now that's only a
That's a
third of the
lot.
population of the United States, but they're scattered over 2 continents. But that is a lot.
Yeah.
And due to contact, they had pox and other Native American diseases. Cholera went through later on and wiped out entire villages. There's many complete tribes now. The smallpox or cholera just wiped out. And but everywhere there was water, a creek, stream, this permanent, not a temporary
Hmm.
man-made thing, but like the Bayou Bartholomew, that's completely natural. Anywhere around there is where Native Americans lived, and I could
Hmm.
see Native Americans in our house because, like I said, we lived on a hill.
Hmm.
Later on, I was about 8 years old. I did my first investigation. Of course, I had nothing, absolutely nothing at that kind of age. I didn't even have a recorder, and even an old-fashioned tape recorder. But it was an old slave house in North Florida.
Hmm.
And I could walk in there and see things moving around inside that one room slave shack. And it was on my old father's family property.
Hmm.
And I could feel the sadness and maybe a little bit of anger that a white person was in that room.
Okay.
So that's as a child. As I grew older, I would absolutely love to walk in a cemetery, and was almost never alone. Because I would, when you open your mind up, you can have ghosts seemingly follow you around, and that's what gives you that chill factor, that being watched. That's when your mind is partially open and you're feeling somebody looking at you. If you open your mind up further and turn around and look, you just might see something.
Yeah, very true.
Then I left Columbus. I got married, got out of the paranormal with the first wife, and didn't have that much experience there, and got divorced. Went to college, too busy. Then went to then after a few years, got married again in Chicago. Yes, I've lived in Chicago, Illinois for 14 and a half years. My wife's a native Chicagoan. And right over 6 years ago, this past December, we moved to Arkansas, and we lived in this house. June 1st will be 6 years in this house.
Okay.
Now in Chicago, I had a lot of experiences. I run into Al Capone. I used to ghost hunt in a bar, Ethel's Party. You may have seen my note that I put on Facebook with the banner that you made.
Yeah.
The fact that photo was taken in the anteroom, the opening room of Ethel's Party, because one of the first groups I formed, Midnight Paranormal Society. No offense to the current group using the name in Texas. This was an Illinois group. They know about me. They know about the group. So no offense. I arranged to meet once a month in Ethel's Party.
Okay.
And down in the basement, well, a little bit of history about Ethel's Party. It was only been a bar for about 8-9 years. For the previous 92 to 93 years, very old building. It was originally built as a funeral home.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting transition into a different building, or a different
different use. And they still had the stage sitting there where the bodies were displayed in the main bar area. They occasionally put a rock band on that same stage.
Wow.
And on Halloween, they got a casket and a life-size human skeleton. Of course, it was plastic, Halloween decoration, put it in the casket and had it displayed on that stage for Halloween.
Wow.
And I contacted the bartender there, and she arranged for us to do investigations there. And I would open it up, and of course, the people would give the bar money. Of course, you had the bartender sitting there. She would serve up free Cokes or 7-Up or whatever out of her normal drink dispenser during the investigation. If you wanted to drink, all you had to do was pay for it. She was there. But I was in there one night. I forget the name of the group. She put a cheap, and you know what I'm talking about here, the transparent ghost meter, the things you can buy for $10.
Yeah.
Looks like just like the phone app, the phone device, with the external probe. So it didn't have an external probe. That is your cheap, basic, a lot of people say useless device. But she put it on the skeleton.
Okay.
In the casket, where the bodies used to be in the old funeral home, now bar. And she said, if anybody's here, please light up the light on that ghost meter. It immediately lit up. It just constantly sat there and flashed for about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And they had a skeptic in the group. And the skeptic said, I'm not really impressed by this light going off. That's a cheap meter. It's probably picking up some residual electricity. This is an old building. Electricity probably leaks, and it did. If you went around, it held any kind of meter anywhere near the walls, it would set it off. And he said, I'm not impressed by running and flashing all the time. If you could tell it to stop and it stops immediately, then I'll be impressed.
Okay.
He said that, turned around, and started walking to the bar. He was going to get him a Coke, like I said, from the bartender. And the lady who ran the group said, okay, spirits, please stop touching that meter. I want the meter to go off. Please stop touching it now. Before the skeptic got to the bar, the meter went off. And I mean, when I said not off, not that it came on, it had been running for a while. It turned off before he got to the bar.
Wow.
This was a skeptic that almost jumped on top of the bar once he got there. And we said, wow, that's impressive. And that that group was very happy they made the little trip.
Yeah.
Down there. And what I found in the cold room, there was a major spirit hanging out there. I finally learned his name. He was buried there the month before I was born.
Okay.
His funeral was in that funeral home in June 1956. I was born July 1956, about 3 weeks after his funeral.
Okay.
And he hung around the cold room. His name is Bruno Rodi. I started looking up the history of Bruno Rodi. It's very hard. There's not that much written about Bruno Rodi. But if you know anything about Al Capone, he had a couple of bombers working for him. Him blowing up cars or setting traps in homes or just blowing up your house was not exaggerated. He did that. He had two people that specialized, Bruno Rodi being one of the main ones. Bruno was there before Al, and he would take a very nice house back in the 20 teens and would do the extortion for him.
Okay.
Because that's one of the things the mob does. Call them up and say, if you call the police about this call, or if you don't pay me thousands of dollars. The one time he got called, it was $40,000.
Wow.
In the mid 19 teens. And we're talking about, 110 years ago. What was $40,000 worth today?
Right.
Because this was a very nice home.
Right.
And just one time he got caught at it, the guy immediately called the police. Bruno Rodi immediately blew his house up. And he got caught. He was put in jail for a short time. He was running the 26th Street gang.
Okay.
And the reason that's relevant is because the bar used to be, it has closed down and moved on to another location. And they're refurbishing the building. But it's at 26th Street in Whitworth in Chicago, so people can look up that location, flash on Google Earth. I haven't checked it lately to see if it's completely refurbished yet. They were working on the inside and the outside. The place was a wreck after the bar had it. They had really sorry people living up top, and finally stopped renting to them because they were tearing the place up. And finally, it was just not ready where they couldn't rent it. They couldn't rent it out, and they left.
Gotcha.
But Bruno was holding over 20 spirits there to keep him company because he could not leave. He was stuck there. And it took me and two psychics to go in there and free him up.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't cross him over because he was afraid to cross over. This is a killer. And he was, of course, most of the monsters were Christian men. There were a lot of them devout, practicing Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't want to move over, but we talked him into being a traveling spirit to kind of forgive himself because Jesus Christ forgave him. He assaulted me a couple of times, knocked my hat off once. I got attacked. He passed through me once, and I got that on video.
Wow.
Where I was holding K2 in front of me. I could feel him. I said, he's approaching from my back. We were in the cold room with about 6, 7 of us in a circle. And I felt him go through me. And anybody who's ever had that done to him, that is a super creepy feeling. He came out of my front, walked through my K2. The K2 automatically went off as I said it was about to. I said, my K2 is about to go off. It went off. He passed through, crossed the circle, and didn't want to walk through the next guy since I detected him. Shoved the guy across the circle from me to get past him. And you can see his feet on the video.
Oh, wow. So
as he
do you have any of the videos posted anywhere if anyone wants to watch?
I have an old YouTube channel that I lost the password to. It's kind of embarrassing. That video is posted on an old YouTube channel. If you look up Lynn Dorman, you can find that on my. You'll probably see my old YouTube channel and my new YouTube channel.
Okay.
You'll also pick up a murder I was involved in Chicago involving Marnie Yang, because I'm on YouTube also because I did a Snapped episode. That, by the way, was recently. If anybody's watched the show Snapped.
I love Snapped.
Really?
I do. Well, with with the True Crime Museum, we're always showcasing true crime. So I'm huge Unsolved Mysteries, Snapped. If it's on Oxygen, I'm usually I watch it.
Gotcha.
I watch true crime more than I do paranormal entertainment shows.
Okay. Well, look up my name on YouTube. You'll see the Snapped episode is recorded there. And according to a poll they did a few months ago, they said they were doing the most popular shows by YouTube fans. I mean, by Snap fans.
Okay.
And the show I was on got to 15 in the polls. The 15th most popular show ever shown any season. So if you look up me and Marnie Yang, you'll
Marnie Yang.
You'll see that episode. I was also on True Crime.
Mm-hmm.
That's another minor show, so on independent networks, doing the same thing with Marnie, and that's also on YouTube. It broke it down into 5, I think, short videos on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It's also on 2020 once, but I don't think that's on YouTube.
And just to clear that up, Janet, the show is Snapped, not Snacked. Snapped.
Yes, please. Snacked is usually what I am in the afternoon before I do a show. Snacked out. Probably what I'll be doing after this show. But that was Snapped. Also
impressive, very impressive.
I appeared on Vengeance. Which is a see it in headline show.
I've not watched it, but I've seen that in the guide. Yeah.
Okay. Watch it sometimes. It's the same thing as Snapped, but I'm going to see it in headline. I was actually on their premiere show about Marnie Yang. Marnie Yang, just real quick so we can move on. Mm-hmm. Marnie Yang disguised herself, and she was having a little affair with Sean Gale, which, by the way, was a player and made an interception in the 1985 Super Bowl, where the Bears won the World Championship in the Super Bowl. She was dating him, and along with about 15, 20 other women. And he was actually engaged. His fiancée got pregnant, and Marnie spent the night with Sean that night, got up. He left in his car going somewhere. She got in a rental car, went over to the other person's apartment, and emptied her gun into her abdomen.
Wow.
She wanted to be sure the baby was killed.
Wow.
So this is yeah.
Yeah.
They when she died, of course, they took the baby out of her and buried the two up with the baby in her arms. That's how they buried her.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm kind of associated with death wherever I go. It's absolutely crazy. So if you want to watch those episodes, look them up and you'll see them.
I'll definitely check that out.
Marnie Yang on YouTube. I appeared on they did a update show 2 years ago, 2-hour special on there, but that's not on YouTube either. But you can probably go to 2020 website and look that up.
Okay.
If you want to watch that show. I did not appear on that show, but a video I took of Marty and several photos I took of her were shown.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out because I know we're always, I'm always watching anything on Oxygen, anything on any of the true crime shows. And Anna says Marty Yang. Is that the
No,
Marnie?
Marnie,
Marnie.
Marni.
Okay. And I think if it's like, because I know Snapped has got, I think they title their shows under the those particular female names. I
Yes,
think.
yes.
Yeah.
So I believe you look up Marnie, Marni. You'll find that on YouTube.
Okay.
Now that was several years ago. I since did investigations in New Orleans. Poor pitiful me. I got to investigate in 2 or 3 different states. That Anna's absolutely correct in her last post, Marnie Yang. That's, you got it. Went down, and I actually at one point was doing an investigation. I was the last investigator to investigate the old French Quarter Wax Museum, which closed right after that. They had a party. I was in there on Friday night. They had a party Saturday, farewell party, and Sunday it was locked up, and Monday they were tearing the place down. They were hollowing out the whole backside, tearing the main building down, leaving the facade up, and we're building condos, which have since been built there.
Okay.
But you can imagine being, I did, the public investigation, but everybody left but me just before 2:00. I got locked in that museum without me knowing about it, alone, for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
In a large wax museum with nothing but a few IR lights, a few UV lights, and I used a red flashlight so I could keep my night vision.
Mm-hmm.
Roaming around a wax museum for that long.
That's
and
just
having
most wax museums are creepy, anyways.
Yes, you can imagine in the dark because all the lights were off, and there was constant ghost talking over my echo box. And yes, Dee Dee says that was awesome. Yes, that was awesome to be locked in there. I missed having team members at that point. The way I found out that I was locked in there is because I tried to go out because I said, I was concerned, am I staying here too long? Did they forget I'm here? Tried to get out and the door was locked, and I had to walk through the whole tunnels that was the museum, some of which are underground, featuring the old classic horror movies, Frankenstein, Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, had all those wax figures, and I had to walk all by them to find the only other exit door, and that one was unlocked. So I did find them. I said, what time do you want to close down? He said, we got to be out here by 5 a.m. I said, well, just turn on the lights at 4:30 so I can take my equipment down. And that's what we did. So I was in there alone till from right before 2 to about 4:30 when the lights came back on. I was still down there by myself for another 30-40 minutes.
Wow.
So I got my equipment picked back up. Now, one thing I did get, it was an old brewery. So up on the second floor, which is technically the third floor because you got the basement downstairs, but I was in there with the public. This is done in front of a whole group of people. They knew I was a paranormal investigator, so they told them to follow him. They were copping out. They said, we don't want to bother him, but if you want to experience, go follow him. So they said, okay. So they found me in the elevator, and this one lady was sitting there. She had done some paranormal investigating, and this guy and a girl was there. They were engaged, and they had never had a paranormal experience before, so they wanted one.
Mm-hmm.
He had given one of the tour people had given him a K2 meter, and that thing started going off. He was holding it kind of right here in front, just below his chest, right about the sternum area. And it was going off. He moved it down further, more comfortable, more to the waist. It was still going off. He said, this has got to be you. So he hit over to me. He put it next to my cell phone, which was turned off.
Mm-hmm.
Had nothing to do with cell phone. and it would go off. He moved, it would go off. He would move his arm, walk over to somebody else, it wouldn't light up at all. He'd go back over where he was standing. We were kind of limited in space anyway. It automatically about 4 lights. So he started complaining and said, what is this? What's going on? So I had EchoVox. If you want to use that, it's an app on the phone. It just gives short versions and kind of sounds like that with its library. Doesn't have any complete words. And I was getting some voices, and I said, what is your name, by the way? He said, Josh. I said, okay. Who is over there next to Josh? Female voice come over there and said, Fred is. Loud and clear. Which stunned everybody. And I said, Fred, are you standing beside Josh? Male voice. Yes. He almost ran out the door off the elevator. By the way, this is the big car elevator where they used to load the beer up on the second floor on the old T-bodied Fords. Lower down the sidewalk level, they'd go out on their routes to deliver the beer. This is back in the early part of the 20th century when beer was legal.
Okay.
And of course, back they kind of hid the fact that when Prohibition started, New Orleans did not participate much in Prohibition. But anyway, he realized when he looked out the door, he had this huge open area. It was half the size of a football field room, where he would have to run all the way across it, around the corner, crossing back into a dark hallway with only an exit sign lighting that area, go down a stairway completely black with no lights going on, and hope there was somebody downstairs at the bottom of the stairs.
Okay. Wow.
So he decided not to run. The lady I mentioned before, the voice come on there and said she has to leave. And she said, are you talking to me? Yes. You have to leave. Why do I have to leave? You have to leave. So she said, okay, let me go stand outside. So she stood outside the room in the dark, out of the elevator for about 15 minutes. And her friend said, can she come back in? Yes, she can come back in. He cannot. And she had a spirit guide.
Okay.
And the ghost in the wax museum did not like the spirit guide. So since they were in there interacting with us, they didn't want the spirit guide on the elevator with us. So she left the spirit guide outside in the room and came back in. She says, everything okay now? Yes, he's not here. And you can imagine being on a public tour, having no paranormal experiences in your life, and this is going on.
Yeah.
With two experienced investigators. Everybody was freaky. After everything kind of calmed, you know how it goes when you're paranormal investigating, you have a lot of activity, that all of a sudden it kind of dies off on you. It died off. They all left. They went downstairs, told the amazing stories that we'd done on the elevator to the people. Of course, that made the tour guide people really happy and left.
Oh, wow.
And I had left and went down in the museum. That's when I got locked in the main part of the museum after everybody had left. They got their money's worth following me around. And I went back with the same group, same paranormal tour group, a year later. Oh, no, 6 months later. And spent 2 nights at the Andrew Jackson Hotel.
Mm.
One guy I know of got a growl there, and wasn't a whole lot going on. Got a few voices, some answers. You ask a question, you get the yes or no answers, and occasionally a mail meter would go off. One of the big things I got, they went down the street to old slave quarters behind a voodoo shop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been there once before and knew the male spirit on the first floor. And I heard footsteps on the second, female in high heels walking in the second, when it was just two of us in the whole house. So I didn't kind of knew what to expect. So the tour guide took about 5 people upstairs, and the rest of them hung with me.
Okay.
Again, everybody hanging around with me. Of course, the lady said her first night was the museum night, and she knew what I did there. She heard all about that.
It's quite
So
a first night.
Yeah. And she said, hang around him. He's pretty good. So I went there and got contact with the resident ghost there.
Mm-hmm.
And we were sitting there just talking with him. He'd answer a few questions. You give somebody's name on the tour. Just standard stuff. Yes, no. I died here. The standard questions everybody wants to. I was trying to cover the simple questions because I was with a group.
Mm-hmm.
And the tour guide walked in, and she was shocked that, she could hear his voice, because she usually goes in there with a mail meter, gets yes or no, make it flash or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So she was shocked to hear his voice. She said, I hadn't heard your voice in so long. You don't usually talk to me. Mm. And he said, well, you talk too much. And this is in front of about 30 people on a tour. And she said, I talk too much. What do you mean I talk too much? You talk too much. And of course, it super embarrassed her. So I just said, okay, let me just change this subject, and went on and we talked. She finally, kind of wore down, and we ended the tour. Mm. But that's just some rather amazing stuff that I got.
Well, and to me, I mean, as simple as that response is, and as embarrassing as it could have been to her, to me, those are the best responses when you kind of get that validation of, the type of activity that you're getting over time, and just kind of the personality. You really kind of start to see the personality with the tour guide interacting with the spirits, and the way the spirits are actually responding with essentially human emotion to these to the tour guide. So I love those type of kind of candid type responses.
It's amazing. And the fact that you're getting more than one word, a yes or a no or a hi, doesn't impress me that much if that's all you got.
Right.
Although with things like the Echo Vox, there is no hi or hello or anything like that recorded in there. So you may or may not be getting something with one word responses.
Sure.
But when you get sentences, when you get 3 or 4 words strung together with the same voice, on a ghost box, when you're using radio frequencies, one words really don't mean that much to me there. But when they say names, or they say 3 or 4 or 5 words in a row with the same voice, and in your radio scanning the channel is in that few words may have hit 10, 12, depending on how fast you've got it set, maybe 15 channels.
Exactly.
What are you getting? That's just totally unexplainable by any normal means. You can't debunk that.
Exactly. And that's what I love about the spirit box is, I mean, it's not possible to scan through the frequencies that fast and get full sentences. And what I always like to do is I always like to take that recording and put it in my audio software and actually look at the sound waves and look, because you can see where the frequency hits, and the bands, if it's a shorter frequency or a faster sweep, the bands are shorter, and if it's a slower sweep, the bands are longer. And so you can actually see where the sound waves fall within those bands as it's scanning through the radio stations, and you can actually see that it's not possible for it to for it to be a station as it sweeps that fast through those stations. So I always like to pull them in just to even be able to see that, just to kind of validate that even further.
Yes, and I use lighting. You see the lighting I have behind me. These were supposed to be UV bulbs. They're not. they look like IR bulbs, and for some reason the camcorder that I use, which is combination camera mic sitting on top of my laptop here, picks up a little bit of IR light outside of the white light coming off the screen from the screen, and here on StreamYard, a lot of white except our little squares that we're in. I'm in a very dark room. I've just got a couple of UVs in the ceiling, and that's all I got. This is how I like to investigate. I am very comfortable like this. Let me tell you something about your listeners. If you know anything about biology and the human eye, and why traffic lights are red, yellow, and green. A bright yellow, is kind of painful. That's the caution light before it turns red, so it wakes you up and gets your attention. You can be inattentive, and that bright yellow light comes on, you know it. So you either slam the brakes or you slam the gas. That's your choice. Why is a red light red? Why is a green light green? Well, red light makes your pupils open. Your pupils will automatically dilate when exposed to only red light, including IR light. It will make your pupils expand. Green light has no effect on the pupil. Wherever your pupils are, the green light hits it. It doesn't close them. It doesn't open them. So if you're using red and green light rather than complete darkness, you can actually see where you're going, but your pupils get dilated pretty quickly. So you can see where you're going using simply IR and UV light. Just don't look at the UV bulbs. Just have them kind of in the ceiling or in the background or behind you, or UV flashlight. And you'll be surprised how bright it gets once your pupils are dilated investigating like that. And you won't trip over anything and fall, which is dangerous, especially if you're in somebody's house or if you're in that wax museum like I was, or anything sitting around. The death toll at that one location where people love to go in there in the dark, you can get seriously hurt. I believe Ghost Adventures, one of them did get a cut on his leg where he tripped over something in the middle of the death tunnel. Where if you're using strictly IR and UV light, you would have seen that. I like to use a cross spectrum lighting, and people wonder what cross spectrum is. Okay, I've got several light kits, lights about this big, that I put on my camera, and it's got IR, a bank of 6 rather large IR lights. On the other side, it's got a set of 6 rather large UV lights. And I put my camcorder in the center of it. In the center are 3 smaller UV bulbs. That it's red. There's about 3 steps into being able to see it from IR. We cannot see IR light. We only see the red residual light. Like what you see behind me. That's residual IR light being reflected by my backdrop back here. Especially the ghost right there. That's sure. The ghost on the back of it. That's when I was working with Chicago Paranormal Investigators. That's sure. And got another one over here on the other side. Anyway, that's IR light. But this one is about 2 or 3 levels inside your vision range. So you got a little bit of red light showing. The other bulb is a violet bulb, 2 or 3 steps into where you can see the violet, but definitely throwing out some UV light. But basically a black light. That's what that is. It's a black light LED. The other one is a standard middle of the spectrum green.
Okay.
So the camera is lit. When I'm operating a camcorder and got it on my hand, you can see what's going on in front of the camera,
Mm-hmm.
because that IR really throws light about 30 feet in front of the camera
Mm-hmm.
without washing it out. And the reason I like to, I kind of call it a twilight, or use cross spectrum lighting,
Mm-hmm.
because if a spirit reflects UV light, I got you.
Mm-hmm.
If it reflects IR light, I got you.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't see it with my naked eye, the camera will pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I can see it with my naked eye, the camera will pick it up. It just varies.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also see where I'm going, either visually with looking around instead of in the viewfinder, or I can look in the viewfinder and see where I'm going. And at the other extreme, if the spirit's putting out its own light,
Mm-hmm.
I can see it because it's not that bright. And if it's a shadow figure, which if you've got no light at all, like the light you do on TV all the time,
Yep.
no light, period, a shadow figure can walk up to you and poke you in the eye,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll never see it in the
Mm-hmm.
dark. With this light, you see a shadow figure, there he goes.
Yeah.
You can see it. We did that at Casa Madrid, a location in Chicago that's been on TV several times. We were in there with a descendant. There used to be a mob-run speakeasy, and we found about a 3 or 4 foot tall shadow figure eclipsing some lights around. I had some very small lights operating like a REM pod.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of touching the antenna where the light would go off, he was walking back and forth in front of the lights,
Okay.
eclipsing the lights, and you could see about 3 or 4 foot humanoid form walking around, eclipsing the lights in there.
Mm-hmm.
Where it looked like a shadow, except that I was behind our lighting, and the
Okay.
other lighting was the other side of the room where he was eclipsing the lights. And I got that on video.
That's cool.
Absolutely amazing video. Tell you one thing I saw on video that I did not see with my naked eye. I was at this is in Oakville, Illinois.
Okay.
It's about 40 miles east of St. Louis, Missouri. And it is called the Original Mineral Springs Hotel, not the one everybody goes to where you've got the big Civil War cemetery.
Okay.
This is a working hotel, and it is a resort. They do have a huge room full of bathtubs. Yeah, they need 3 or 4 feet tall. It's kind of hard to estimate when you're looking at something walking back and forth across the room. But yeah, it was 3 to 4 feet tall. And so it was not either or, somewhere in between 3 to 4 feet. Anyway, I was shooting there overnight. Wasn't getting a whole lot, to be honest. You know how, again,
Mm-hmm.
you've been there, done that, that you get in there and you try your best. You know you're in a haunted location, and you don't get anything. That happens. If I got
Mm-hmm.
if every time I turned on a meter or turn on a camera or turn on Echo Box, and I got something every time, I would doubt my own findings. I'd be going, what am I doing where I'm getting all these false positives?
Mm-hmm.
When I get nothing,
Mm-hmm.
I say, okay, this kind of verifies, what I do.
It validates what you do get. Yeah.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and we've been shooting for a while, several hours. I'd had to recharge my cameras, but we were still trying to go on. And I went into this one area we hadn't investigated yet because it was on top of their bar, and their bar ran to 2:00 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I waited till after 3 when they cleaned up and gotten done. So I went in there, turned on a camera, turned on some recorders, and automatically had footsteps in a hallway. There's 2 hallways leading out of the room, leading to massage rooms, because like I said, this is kind of a resort.
Okay.
And you go in there for the massage, drink the mineral water. This is this is on the 2nd floor, where the downstairs in the basements where they had their huge room with tubs. So again, you can soak in hot mineral water. Anyway, I was up there, heard footsteps, so I went and got the person I was working with. They were working they had an indoor pool. They built, added on the hotel, made it a whole square, and had a big courtyard in the center with a pool out there. So they decided, why not use the pool in the winter? And they just roofed their courtyard.
Okay.
They just put some real big beams up there and put a roof over the courtyard. Anyway, I went and got her, and we went back in there, and we turned on a ghost box. There was no radio stations anywhere near Oakville. We were not picking up anything out of St. Louis, not inside that building, metal roof. So I wouldn't pick up anything. And so we just let it run. We just walked away from it, wouldn't get anything at all. Just let it run. I turned on the cameras, and was shooting video, trying to contact. There was the question was, who's the white lady? Like, how many places have a white lady?
Lots.
The story was there's 2 women there.
Okay.
One had arthritis and died there of old age.
Okay.
I've been suffering from arthritis for about 15 years, 15, 18, 20 years now. And I'm rubbing my right, this is my right hand, rubbing right here because it's all right here. It's hurting me right now. I guess I stayed on a mouse too long, so it makes that thumb hurt.
Yeah.
Anyway, her arthritis was pretty well cured because she took daily mineral baths there.
Okay.
And they were wondering if it was her or another woman who was also, the first one was married to one of the owners of the hotel, into the family. The second woman was married to one of the, I think, nephews of the family who owned the hotel. And she just got up and left one day. And her, member of the family who she left, got a shrine to her put in a closet in the hotel.
Wow. Okay.
Pictures. He'd go in there with the candles and just sit there by the hour looking at her photos, the things that belonged to her, things she touched. And he finally went there one day with a gun and shot himself.
Oh.
And I was filming in there, and the one who had died there contacted me. At one point was standing in front of me, go right up almost nose to nose. The person who was with me said it looked like the girl was going to kiss me. We got that close. Then she'd take a couple of steps back to see if I was seeing her, and one would step forward to see if I could see her. And finally, I got to where I was holding her hand.
Okay.
And I thought this was cool. Now, until I looked at the video a week later at the house, and in Chicago, not here, but in Chicago, and I was watching it, and my wife just looks over my shoulder. She said, "Where's the ghost that you're talking to?" I said, "I'm holding her hand." She said, "Well, who's that?" Pointed to a hallway, one of the 2 hallways that I told you from coming that were attached to that room.
Mm-hmm.
Here is a woman in a complete antebellum dress, big hoop skirt,
Okay.
standing there looking at me and the other ghost from down the hall. Then she walks down, it was an L-shaped hall. She walks down the hall where I couldn't see her. A few minutes later, she walks back in the viewfinder, stood there, and I guess contacted I did not have Echovox at the time. I don't think Echovox had been quite invented at that time. And without saying anything out loud that we could hear, contacted the ghost that was holding my hand. And she walked away from me. And as soon as the girl started walking away, the other girl walks out of the camera view down the hallway. So, of course, I realized the first ghost had walked down the hall and went down the hall to see what was there. It is to show anybody watching the video there was nobody there. All it was a couple of massage rooms. That's it. At the L section, which is where the girl was standing in front of the door, was a break room for the people who worked there. The 2 of us went into the break room, and we realized why the female ghosts were disappearing. there were 3 gangsters sitting there. This was a big meetup for gangsters.
Okay.
Where Chicago wanted to parlay with the St. Louis people, they would meet there. A lot of the times, the Chicago mob came down here to Hot Springs, which is a place I'm planning on investigating. They have an Al Capone statue in one of the restaurants here in Hot Springs in Arkansas, and I do plan to go there. But when they wanted to meet with St. Louis, they met there in Okkerville. And the girl looked at me and says, I wonder what would happen if I sat down in the chair in his lap.
Oh,
I said, there's
wow.
only one way to find out. So she plopped down in the chair, something like the one I'm sitting in. And of course, all 3 of them jumped up and started running through the door. And of course, me being me, instead of backing off or running in fear, I opened the door to see where they were going.
Mm-hmm.
Just as I was touching the door, the ghost box for the first time started talking.
Interesting.
And we're talking complete sentences like somebody was there. And there was nobody in this entire section. So there was a clock in the room, and occasionally I would catch the clock with my camera, just checking the time off.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a few minutes before sunset. Excuse me, sunrise, pardon me.
Okay.
Spoke there. And when we heard the ghost box go off, the 2 of us looked at each other, that's the ghost box, and ran out the door. When we opened the door and took a couple of steps, the hallway was dark. Again, I just had the IR UV lights going in there, and it was pretty dark. When we took the 3rd and 4th steps in the hallway, it was suddenly bright sunshine. When we started walking was before sunrise. The sun hadn't even cracked the horizon yet.
Okay.
And they did have a couple of windows facing east. So when a little bit of the sun got over the edge, it was kind of bright in that room pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
When we walked up, almost the entire sun was shining in the window.
Huh.
My theory
That's
is
odd.
that when we ran out of the room, the mobsters opened up a little portal and ran through it and went back to wherever. You tell me. And we ran through it because I had a camera going in the front room close to the ghost box that on its microphone picked up what the ghost box said.
Okay. There
was several minutes passed. You could hear us when we said, that's the ghost box going off.
Mm-hmm.
And a little shuffling of feet. And then there's silence for several minutes until we ran into the room from the hallway. And the first thing we said, how did it get so bright? Those were seconds to me.
Mm-hmm.
To the camcorder in my hand, it was seconds from the ghost running in through the door, us opening the door, that's the ghost box, and us taking a few fast steps and say, how did it get so bright in here? Why is it so bright all of a sudden? It was a matter of seconds. On the other camcorder, that was a static one that was running on the tripod, several minutes of silence passed between them.
Wow. Now that's wild.
Had we had a third person not with us that was standing in that room and looked at us in the hole, what would they have seen? The 2 of us open the door, say something, take a couple, 2 or 3 steps, disappear for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then reappear further down the hallway. I don't know what they would say.
Yeah.
I just know that the cameras did not sync up. And on one, there's no gap between words and actions. On the other camera, there's several minutes gap.
Oh, see, that's wild.
It's absolutely crazy and insane. Did I walk through a portal and basically get spit out because I'm a living person? I One thing we did have as a footnote to this,
Mm-hmm.
the person I was with later on almost died of cancer.
Mm.
She was stage 2, almost into stage 3, and they brought her back.
Okay.
I developed skin cancer on my left shoulder that I've since had removed a couple of years ago. But that's kind of funny that the two
Mm-hmm.
of us had that experience, and both of us have various degrees of cancer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I don't believe in
So,
coincidence, so, you know.
yeah, exactly. So, what in the world did I go through right there? I don't know. I can't explain it. There's no debunking the gaps on the camera. Of course, I could have created that. People will say, "Well, you did that on purpose," but I did not. I put up the raw videos. I think if you
Mm-hmm.
go to that YouTube channel that I can't get to anymore, I got to repost it on my new channel.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out how to do it side by side so we can actually show the gap.
Yeah. Now
That's
that
what I
that would
want
be
to do,
fantastic.
and show the time mark on the two cameras.
Mm-hmm.
But that was some amazing stuff that I've gone through. You asked for experiences, and there you have it.
Well, you definitely, I mean, you've been doing this for, what was it, 15 years? You've been
About
investigating?
15 years.
Yeah.
Back before I left Chicago, well, I actually been doing it longer than that because I was doing a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of investigating in the Columbus area.
Mm-hmm.
Columbus people. I was a member of the Westerners and the Civil War Roundtable with Richard Crowe
Okay.
in Chicago area. If your viewers from Chicago area know who Richard Crowe was, thousands and thousands of people around the world went on his ghost tours in Chicago before he died. And he died about 7 years ago now, like before I
Okay.
left Chicago. And anyway, I was where was I going with this? I just had a brain fart. Anyway, uh, so where was I going? Oh, the Columbus Naval Museum. Before I
Mm-hmm.
left, they just built it. I'm not going to go into that was part of me doing that. I was kind of active politically and in Columbus,
Mm-hmm.
and they moved the Columbus Naval Museum from an outdoor museum to an indoor. They finally
Okay.
built a huge room to hold 2 ironclads that were built in Columbus Iron Works, and were burned to the ground during the Civil War. In the new museum, they made a video about what it's like to be on a river ironclad and what happens when you hit a mine. Because with the way to destroy an ironclad, forget it shooting a cannonball at it,
Mm-hmm.
bounce off. But the way to destroy it is to walk up. They built the people going against the ironclad. They had a long handle and a big, just basically a shovel at a weird angle, and they would put explosives on the shovel part, sneak up on the ironclad, and it was wooden under the bottom. Hold that explosive against the wood, and the explosives are really, really bad on wood. They just splinter it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when it went off, it filled that entire area near the explosion. If you were there, you got killed by splinters,
Okay.
or you were badly wounded. And showed the videos kind of showed what happens when the explosion goes off and then the sinking of an ironclad, which of course sank very quickly because of the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I was sitting there watching that video, and I noticed this other person come in, sat down, was watching the video with me. You don't think anything about it. You're in kind of a dark room. You can't see any details. Your eyes don't have your night vision turned on because you're looking at a bright screen.
Yeah.
But I was not alone. And I saw this person sitting there, and I wasn't quite dressed right. There was something weird about him. I figured, maybe it's somebody, just come in from the street wanting to go to the museum. And walked out and toured the rest of the museum, took a few photos. And the lady said, "We're closing." I said, "Okay, just let me know when you want to lock the door." And she finally said, "Okay, we're locked. We need to lock the door." I said, "Okay, I'll go." But I was outside in the main part of the museum. I could see the door. And obviously talking to her, could see her. There was nobody there that I could see.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd locked the door and was going to let me out of it. I said, "Well, wait a minute. There's one other person back here who's watching the movie with me a few minutes ago." She said, "What other person?"
Hmm.
I said, "Well, they're watching the movie with me. A guy." He said, "We've only had about 5 or 6 people in here all day long. They were gone before you got here. There was nobody here when you got here but you, and nobody came in since."
Wow.
So what I was watching is a spirit attached to those 2 ships,
Mm-hmm.
watching the video with me.
Wow. That that gave me chills.
That was a
And
full-bodied apparition I could see with my naked eye.
wow. So Anna asks, was there any time that you ever got spooked?
Spooked. It's hard to spook me. I don't. I've been doing this for so long that it's kind of hard to spook me. One time here in Arkansas, I was in a abandoned hospital in Dumas, Arkansas, and I was got in there with permission of the city. The guy who's in charge of all the civic buildings let me in there, and for a while he was with me, checking on some machinery that's still there at the old hospital. He was just looking at, make sure it hadn't been torn up by vandals or whatever. Took a few notes and said, "I'm gone," and walked out.
Okay.
After he'd left, of course, the police department knew I was there, and a guy sat out in the parking lot for a couple hours, and I heard footsteps, and they were loud, and I thought the police officer had come inside and was checking on me. Are you still here or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
So I started hollering for the police officer. Hollering, said, "I'm here. Who are you? What are you doing here?" And I thought, second thought, they have a couple of homeless people there, homeless person who walked in. But I had tied the door shut. I'd pretty well locked myself in. So there was one door the cop may have pulled on and gotten in.
Mm-hmm.
But then I looked out front. The police officer was sitting in his car out front. And there was nobody there. I checked over the whole place, screaming at the top of my lungs, "Who's there? Who are you? What do you want?" And got no answer. And searched every crack and crevice to make sure a homeless person wasn't in there with me.
Yeah.
That one time I was spooked, not so much worried about the ghost. I was worried about the living.
Yeah.
I didn't. When you're sitting there with cameras, you got several $100s worth of cameras, and somebody homeless got nothing. They may be looking at a camera. They can go in and hawk a pawn shop and hawk for $10, and they're rich with $10 in their hand. They go get them a bottle of wine or whatever they want to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to get knocked over the head by a homeless person just trying to steal my camera.
Yeah.
So I was spooked there, and it happened again about 30 minutes later. And the first thing I did this time was look out front, see the police officer's car. The police officer was gone. Apparently, they had a call, and they were gone. I didn't have anybody on the whole lot with me.
Wow.
And the very loud footsteps. And then later on, after that, I got a voice when I was trying to get people to talk over a ghost box, and the ghost box kept saying, "Don't speak, don't talk to him, don't answer." So that place has a domineering, I guess, a nurse or somebody who doesn't want the spirits there talking to anybody. They used to run a haunted attraction there, and they had to stop it because you had people working there that were getting semi-possessed. they were working in a haunted house, and all of a sudden they start talking gibberish, or start doing some crazy things, and actually turned around and attacked a couple of their coworkers.
Oh, wow.
So they had to get out of there. So you have a spirit. If you're in there for very long, they will try to possess you. And that's one thing about Bachelor's Grove in Chicago. You've probably heard of that.
I have.
That place, it got vandalized so many times. The spirits there, you had that "I want to own this" feeling, and that's why you have this huge fight for years that has gone on with paranormal people in Chicago, because they want to run that by themselves, not allow any tours in there but theirs, not allow anybody to investigate there but them, so they can make tours of the place.
It's almost like a turf war.
Yeah, because the place, if you spend very much time there at all, you want to run the place. One guy was actually hiding in trees and would start catcalling other people who came in there with a tour.
Wow.
He pitched such a fit. It's in the middle of the forest preserve, which is public land, but of course you have the forest preserve rangers in Cook County running there around. The cemetery is not in the forest preserve, but you can't get to the cemetery without walking through forest preserve land.
Mm-hmm.
So you had people fussing because this guy was in trees catcalling tours. They finally said, "You can't come in here with a tour of more than about 5 people." Trying to knock the public, because everybody had a tour of Chicago, bringing people out to Bachelor's Grove.
Yeah.
At one point, they were talking about it was right there along the old Midlothian Highway, that wide path you could walk down to. And they were talking about putting cabins there at one point on their property, the Forest Preserve property, and renting them out for people to stay there, because it was a very popular trail. Local walk back and forth in front of the cemetery all day. They don't go into the cemetery, but they walk by it on the trail. So they're talking about building houses there, so people would actually spend the night there in the woods. Not a bad thought.
Mm-hmm.
But you had 2 or 3 different paranormal people trying to buy every weekend for 2 to 3 years, and was fussing and talking bad about the other paranormal people trying to do the same thing. Forest Preserve got so much flack, they said, "Forget it. We're not building houses. You can't come in here on tours." And it's few and far between that they even let anybody in there at night because of all the fussing and fighting. When Ghost Adventures went in there, they gave a check up front to keep Forest Preserve rangers on the paths to keep people from interfering with their investigation. They were supposed to write them a check later, after the event.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And so it's very hard to get permission. Dale Kaczmarek got permission for one night in there.
Mm-hmm.
There was one tour group that he managed to do a lot of talking.
Mm-hmm.
Walked a tour in there from Paracon. It was held nearby one night. But they've really cracked down on the investigation. They put some cameras back there to try to crack down on the people going in there at night without permission.
Yeah.
And the place is not active anymore much anyway. Most of the spirits during the daytime, I went in there and said, you're not stuck here in the cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And the child spirit there that was stuck, I talked to her enough and demonstrated to her that she died at 11 months and 4 days old, Libby Mae Humphrey, that she could move around on her own. And the white lady at Baxter's Grove, the picture on the stone, look up ghost photo.
Okay.
And you'll see a translucent lady sitting on a square stone with a cube crosshatch. The squares are not, like this, where you can see them as a square. They're turned sideways, where it looks like it's a crosshatch pattern.
Okay.
On the stone, that's the biggest, most popular, most well-known ghost picture on the planet. Dale Kaczmarek group, Ghost Research Society, took the picture. I say this because he's had problems with rights before,
Mm.
people on shows like this, making money or,
Mm-hmm.
without giving him credit. We're not even showing the photo.
Right.
And, and I'm giving him credit. Judy Huff took the photo. That photo has been checked by Ghost Adventures 2 different times. They showed it when they were there in Bachelor's Grove, and later they brought Judy Huff out when they were doing the studio version
Mm-hmm.
of Ghost Adventures. Was Zach Bagans had interviewed her for a while, checking the photo out to be sure the negative hadn't been fooled with. And
Mm-hmm.
it has been checked by several different people over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's Amelia Humphrey. It's the person on the stone. The reason she was there is because her firstborn child, Libby Mae Humphrey, died in 1865, at,
Okay.
right at the end of the Civil War, just after 11 months and 4 days. She had to be buried in Baxter's Grove because her husband John Humphrey was one of the founders of nearby Orland Park, and became one of the most powerful, in fact, the most powerful, for a couple of decades, man outside of Chicago and Cook County.
Okay.
He was mayor of Orland Park for a while. Why didn't they bury him in their family plot in Orland Park Cemetery? Well, Orland Park Cemetery, he just founded the town, did not take burials till 1869. Their firstborn died in 1870. They had another one born in 1870 that died a year or so later that is buried with them in Orland Park Cemetery. But Libby Mae is buried there with a couple of cousins. The Humphreys and the Patricks died out when the cemetery, by the 1980s, when they wanted to abandon the cemetery. They put out, if we're abandoning the cemetery, it's no longer going to be used. Come get your loved one. And about 250 of the people who were buried there were dug up and moved to other places, which left about 250. They took about half the bodies out of there. There's arguments in Chicago going on now that say all the bodies were removed. That's almost impossible with an older cemetery. And
Mm-hmm.
there's between 200 and 250 people still buried there, mostly unmarked
Okay.
graves.
Okay.
Uh, but I got Libby. She kind of befriended me. I made contact with her, or she made contact with me actually, and started playing with the sound. I got a special K2 with a temperature
Mm.
probe on it, and she started
Mm-hmm.
playing with the temperature probe and playing with the alarm. But I got her to where she could move around a little bit on her. Anna said Emilia. It's Amelia. A-M.
Okay.
Amelia. With an A. The nearby Humphrey House is open up one Sunday a month for tours. And the way I figured out it was her is because they had one of her wedding pictures. Early photography. These were expensive. They paid more in their day for one photo than most wedding people paid the photographer to be there for the whole wedding.
Sure. Yeah.
And because photography was so hard and so new. You had to stand there and stand still, like this for several minutes for it to take.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a picture of that wedding picture and they got it side by side on my computer. And the picture of the white lady at Bachelor's Grove, their hairstyle is the same. It's profile versus the face on.
Mm-hmm.
But the hairstyle is the same. The profile matches the facial shot. And it's the same doggone dress.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, that's
so
a
yeah,
cool
I found out.
capture.
Yeah, that was a cool capture by Judy Huff and the Dale Kazmarek. And Dale did not believe it when I showed him the two pictures side by side. He immediately put on his computer, it's the same person. Everybody I've
Mm-hmm.
talked to says it's the same person. I actually had one paranormal person fuss at me and say it's not the same person. Uh, that picture doesn't exist. And somebody else chimed in and said that picture exists. It's been open to the public for years. That's a public photo. They show on public tours. That's that picture's not copyrighted by anybody. Anybody can go in there and take a picture of that picture. So then he said, well, it's not the same person. You can't go tell because they want to make money.
Mm-hmm.
They were going out there and having a seance or something, or he was out there doing the ghost box session, an echo box session, and trying to say, yes, this is Amelia, and yes, that was me. and not give out the information free. I'm saying it should be public knowledge. The photo's kind of privately owned by Dale and Judy, but it's out there. Dale can't sue hundreds of people because it's on Google, and it's just there. And the other one I put out was publicly. It was a public photo. There's no copyright to it, and I just give it out free. I said, this is Amelia Humphrey. But you had, again, people trying to keep Bachelor's Grove to themselves because that's what the cemetery wants. It's owned by the county. The county denies they own it, even though we've seen paperwork where the last person who owned the place willed it to the county. The county's in denial. They don't want that piece of paper made public because they don't be responsible. You had somebody get killed. They were climbing up on one of the top big tombstones there and fell off and died. And they were trying to deny ownership so Cook County doesn't have to pay out in case somebody's badly injured in the place.
So is the turf war, is that sort of brought on by the when, I don't want to say like a possession when the investigators go in there, but is it sort of a possession type thing brought on by the cemetery, or is it just, I don't know, investigator ego?
You can say either one and probably partially correct. It's a lot of ego involved, of course. The egos are in everything. In the paranormal, you got egos as big as this house I'm sitting in. And occasionally I get accused of that, but I throw everything out to the public. I don't try to own much of anything. I think if you got a ghost video or a ghost photo, throw it out there. People are gonna say it's fake. But I'm not going to sit there and want to charge you $5 to see it. I'm not going to sit there and get a tour and want you to pay me $30 or $40, along with 10 or 12 other people, and give you this information. I'll throw it out there like I am here. I think you should know about it for free. It's a ghost story. It's fun. You can go there and say, I was there, and move on. But yeah, it's partially ego, but the cemetery wants an owner. The spirits that are left there want somebody to own them and somebody to take care of the cemetery. It's kind of settled down now because to keep people out of there, you used to just let it grow up. And by middle of summer, you had 7 and 8 foot weeds in the place. Now to keep people out of there, because they realized you could have a brigade of camouflage people in there, and you could walk in, you would not know they were there. Till they walked out of the weeds. So they now cut the grass low like it's somebody's lawn so nobody can hide in it. There used to be a lot of lines of flowers there. I forget the name of the flower. Kind of grows up big leafy thing, kind of like this. About this, foot and a half tall. Beautiful yellow flowers. I forget the name of the plant. And they cut all them down. They're bulbs, so they really grow back, and they grow back quicker than the grass, but they can still cut all that down to keep people from hiding in there at night. Because there are so many places to hide. And their big thing is to stop the vandalism and to try to stop people from talking about it.
Gotcha.
And it seems to have worked. The people who want to own the place, they're spending less time there. They don't have the urge anymore. The one guy, he lived outside Chicago. He had to drive an hour and a half, 2 hours just to get there from where he lived, just to climb a tree in the cemetery and catcall people. When there's public tours, or they'd say, "Oh, what kind of camera you got?" "Oh, it's a full spectrum." "It's not a full spectrum camera, kid. You're not kidding. Kid, may go on."
Wow.
And would do that with people. He's not there much anymore. He's not even updating his YouTube place anymore. He used to scream about it, but I think he spent enough time away from it, living away from the Chicago area, and the spirits have calmed down a lot. Dale was telling me a couple years ago that he went in there, and there's hardly anything. If you call out Amelia's name, she will answer you. She'll answer
Mhm.
him anyway. She may not answer everybody else because she
Yeah.
knows that I told him about everything.
Gotcha.
One, one of the reasons
Mhm.
Amelia contacted me because she got to laugh at her husband. There's a little story there. Uh, John was obviously ran for state senate, got married. Theirs was a marriage of convenience. It wasn't love. Their families were two big landowners in the area. Good, marriage for both to kind of unite both families. And soon after he got elected to the state senate, this is not a U.S. senator, a state senator. He had, of course, you got to have an assistant. He got a secretary, and immediately started having an affair with her. So he had this affair for many years. Not so much behind Amelia's back either. There she was in the house with her because his office is in his home. So it's kind of obvious to Amelia what was going on. But she stayed married to him, and she got tuberculosis, I believe it was, and died. It's kind of debatable. Her gravestone says 1881. Some of the recording things say 1880. Yeah, that's a simple small mistake that's all too often in common in
Mhm.
that time period. But he got married to his secretary 6 months after his wife died.
Mm.
Quite the scandal. I was investigating the Humphrey house one night, and they had his original beaver top hat on, which was really popular at the time.
Mhm.
John Humphrey, even when that ran out of style, would still wear his top beaver hat because he's only about 5'5".
Okay.
So, short people either want to look taller, so he put this great big tall hat on. Well, when I was investigating the place, I wore that hat for about an hour as a trigger object,
Okay.
and I got him to partially appear in front of me. And Amelia just thought this was hilarious. When of course, she heard about it almost the time it happened. I don't know how things work on the other side, but
Mhm.
she knew what would. Maybe she was there looking in on it. But she thought it was very amusing the fact that I was at about 5'9", was wearing this big top hat, beaverskin top hat. Yes, I have had a beaverskin top hat on my head. Yes, Anna, it was fun. I think Amelia thought it was fun. John did not. He was rather angry that I was in his bedroom wearing his hat. He did not find that amusing at all, but everybody else did. And that just some of the adventures I've gotten in several different states.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you've traveled all over, and I appreciate you taking the time to share those stories. I love hearing about the stories out of Chicago and out of New Orleans because we talk about that a lot here on the show. Just how different the different hauntings are in the different areas, and so I appreciate you sharing those stories with us. We're about to wrap things up. Would you share where people can find your videos and where they can also listen to your podcast?
Okay, on YouTube, look up Lynn Dorman, and you'll more than likely find both YouTubes. You can look at some of the old YouTube. I can't control it anymore. I've lost the password, but you can see some of my older videos there, include some of the ones I just mentioned are there. On the new one, doesn't have a whole lot of content yet, but I have on my different channels. I have a lot of things that are of some interest there. That's a Lynn Dorman. It's Sea Arc.
Okay, and I'll go in and update the show notes too with the actual link to those
Okay.
pages on the YouTube.
And that's not CR Lynn Dorman, CRPS, which is the name of the Paranormal Society. I'm just the only member of CR.
Okay.
A lot of things here in Southeast Arkansas are called CR because SEARK,
Okay.
CARK, Southeast Arkansas Paranormal Society. Now you can pick up my show on WLFEDB.com on their site. They have a YouTube channel, WLFE DB. On YouTube. You can pick up my show there. You can also look me up on Facebook, Lynn Dorman. No CR there, just Lynn Dorman. And you can pick up the updates to the podcast because I've got the little page things. I've got the podcast page there. And you on live, you can pick up the show. Now, I am, after tonight's show, I've been running on Central Time, which is my time, 7 to 9. You've been there, done that with me, and I thank you for that. I am moving the time next week.
Okay.
Central Time, I will be on from 10 to midnight.
Okay.
It was a little bit too early being at 7 o'clock. Interferes with my supper time, interferes with a lot of other people's supper time. I was, we were competing against each other on Thursday night shows for 1 hour. The last hour of my show, the first hour of yours were overlapping. Yep. Now we would not overlap. You get off and I come on. So if people want to watch your show, then they can tune in automatically to mine.
That's right. That's right.
Starting next week. So we'll stop interfering with each other, and maybe we can kind of work together sometime, one leading into the other, starting next week.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The easiest way to contact me is Facebook, Lynn Dorman.
Awesome. And I encourage you guys to go check out Lynn's show. I know I was on it. I guess it was about a month and a half ago or early January, I believe. And you've had some great guests on there. And like I said, just covering some great stories. Go and check out Lynn's YouTube channels. I'll make sure to update the show notes on the Facebook page as well as the YouTube channel so that you guys can go and check out some of these videos and see the stories and everything. I love the fact that you do cover, you're very knowledgeable on the history of these locations and stuff. So,
but that's part of being a paranormal investigator. You've
absolutely.
got to know your history. You got to study your history. And it's the fact that I find history somewhat amusing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I want to thank everyone in the chat room for your questions, for sticking with us and, comments and everything. Thank you, Anna, for helping me moderate this channel. I know on YouTube, we sometimes get some of those hackers, whatever, on there. So I've been trying to remove those from the chat room as we're going through, and I appreciate you reporting those because it's kind of hard to do all that at one time. So again, thank you, everybody. And like I said, just kind of on a few personal notes here. Like we said, final weekend of the Crimes of Passion tours coming up at the historic Scott County Jail. Definitely check those out. The only night we do have tickets available are Friday night. We're going to be announcing tomorrow the flashlight tours and public ghost hunts for March and April that are there. So if you don't see your date available and you would like to go on a public ghost hunt with myself and Dr. Sumner from Soul Sisters Paranormal, you can contact us if the date is not available, and we will set up a custom date for you, as well as the research study that's going on there for private paranormal investigation teams, as well as psychic solo investigators and mediums. And, like I said, just a whole lot going on over there. Next week, I will have the beautiful blondes from Paranormally Blonde on. We're going to be kicking off Women's History Month with some great female investigators, location owners, and we're doing something kind of special for the month of March, with it being Female History Month, and showing some appreciation for the ladies out there. And so it's going to be every Thursday night. There's going to be a great group of ladies that we're highlighting during that month. So Paranormally Blonde will be on next week. If you've not watched their podcast, you can go back. You can watch past episodes and kind of catch up and get ready for a great fun-filled chat next Thursday night.
I'll be tuning in since we're not competing anymore.
Nice.
After your show, I'll be watching your show. And by the way, I want to say one thing. Thank you, Randy and Anna. I've been on a couple of shows in chat rooms or actually talking with people on several different shows, and especially on YouTube, you're having a lot of Russian bots coming in.
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry, that's only going to increase because, we got to be in current events. There's a war going on in Ukraine, probably the biggest war since 1939 going on in Europe, and Russia is going to do stuff on the internet to us. They may end up crashing several businesses, trying to extort money from American businesses. And I thank you for blocking any of the Russian bots, because that looked
Yes.
very Russian lettering
Yes.
to me. And
Mm-hmm.
every show I've appeared in this past week has had some kind of Russian bot coming in. So I'd say you
Mm-hmm.
and all your listeners, please beware and take them down immediately. We have no
Yes.
business with Russian bots
Mm-hmm.
fooling with any of our shows here, and they will interfere if they can.
Yeah, and this is it's not been as bad this week. I think I just blocked 5 different ones here in the comments while we were talking. And so I can block them here on the chat room, but I can't report them. So I go in and report them after the fact. So thank you, Anna, for taking care of that. And like I said, anyone else who's in the chat room that sees that going on during some of these different shows, I echo Lynn's sentiments that it's something, take them down immediately, just because, unless there's someone has a mod on there, it really helps. So
yeah, we're at war with Russia, and it's going to be cyberly. We're not sending soldiers into the Ukraine, but Anna is being a soldier for you right now against Russia, which would love to have interfered with your show tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so thank you again very much. I really appreciate you guys watching with us. Appreciate your feedback, and like I said, we've got that going on. Lots of things going on over the next couple months. So, so everyone, and then of course with everything going on in the world right now, everyone, please stay safe, and check back in with us. Go ahead and if you've not subscribed to the Historic Scott County Jail, tune in, because we do have a really, really great guest coming on this Monday night with myself and Dr. Sumner. It's going to be Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and it's going to be David Crider, and he is with Southwest Expeditions in New Mexico, and we're going to be talking about the historic Donna Anna Courthouse and their preservations that's going on there with the courthouse and the jail. He's doing something very similar to what Dr. Sumner and I have done with the historic Scott County Jail. And so we're going to share his story and share the information about that. And that's going to be on the Jailhouse Informant on Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So, so again, throwing a lot of information at you guys. We do definitely have events and stuff that have been posted on the Ghost Biker page, and different events that's coming up. I believe the first event that's coming up is April. It's in April, and it's at St. Albans, where I'll be speaking that weekend with a ghost hunt as well. So definitely go check out my site on Facebook and YouTube for more information on that. And like I said, we'll see you all. If I don't see you Monday on the Historic Scott County Jail page, I will see you on the Ghost Biker page next Thursday night at 9 p.m. So everyone, take care and have a great week.